Hello everyone and welcome back to the dannphan channel. Today we have another paid review. This series is called Relentlessly Bullied Hero, which I have seen on Twitter occasionally before even being approached to do this review. I think it's a good title, because it makes me ask, what the heck does that mean? You would think that, like, every hero is kinda getting relentlessly bullied by villains, right? Especially Batman, dear God. But what does it mean in this context? We have the classic superhero organization world, and we have a bunch of villains that are just rampaging about, and our main character is one of the lesser heroes who had his life saved by a villain of all people. And as part of her deal for saving him, she now has his heart, so she can kill him basically anytime she wants, but she doesn't want to do that, right? Because she is bored, and she wants to have fun with the hero, just to cure her boredom. And he agreed to this as part of the deal. Which I assume is where the title Relentlessly Bullied Hero comes from, is the fact that he keeps on getting teased by this villain who he can't really do anything about. He can't arrest or put in jail because she has his heart. Possible romance in the works? Now, I did get a preview of Book 2, which is currently being funded. It is not completely done, so I can't do a really thorough review of it, but I will be able to review Book 1 for you with a better understanding of where Book 2 heads, and if I think the series is going to be good as a whole. So Book 1, we start off with a main villain called Bust Zerker, which is, you know, that's quirky. Every time he says goodbye, he says Bombay. Yeah, that's the shit right there. And he starts off by knocking over this statue because he's not nice. So naturally, our hero, whose name is Zeal, although I keep on forgetting his name and thinking that it's supposed to be Veal. Ah, veal! Delicious! He hears that Burst Zerker is causing some trouble, and he decides to slip away and answer the call. Although I am a little bit confused because this first introduction that we get of Zeal, it makes it seem as though he needs to hide that he's a superhero. You know, you start off with him with the hoodie on, and he's like, I need to slip away while everyone's distracted. You know, you make it seem like he has a secret identity, but that's not really the case, at least from what I've gathered from the rest of the series. I mean, first of all, when he puts on his quote-unquote superhero outfit, it's just a COVID mask. That's about it. And then, like, in Book 2, he's just at a party, no mask and everything, and uses his powers in front of people, and, you know, it doesn't seem like any kind of secret identity is part of this. A lot of the other heroes have no mask whatsoever. Maybe this is a line or an introduction scene from a very old first draft that just they forgot to change at one point, but it did confuse me. Now, while he's on his way to answer this call, he gets suddenly stopped by Grimora, and this is how we're introduced to her and her bond with Zeal. Although I don't really think it was very properly introduced, because I was especially confused with her introduction here. They don't explain, like, why he can't arrest her, so I just assume it's because she's too strong for him to fight. The idea behind her is that she made some sort of deal with a demon, and now she has a bunch of superpowers. But, you know, even this introduction scene does not exactly do a good job at explaining what her superpowers were. By the time I finished the comic, there is a better explanation at the end where they do like a character profile of her. I shouldn't have to wait till the very end of the book to understand what was happening, you know? The basic idea behind her abilities is that she can call forth powers based on the 7 deadly sins. Each of these sins grants her a different power that she can use. So she uses like one of her powers to overpower him and hold him down. Although I don't know why exactly. Things are always better with the right set piece. I don't know what that means. And then she just lets him go. Not the best introduction scene. I think you could have done much better. So he goes to fight the Berserker, but unfortunately he fails. Let's call a wrap for tonight. let's call it a wrap for tonight. And then he goes back to repair the statue that Berserker had blown up. And obviously we can assume that he has some sort of connection to the hero who is represented in the statue, although we, even at the end of the book, don't really quite understand what his relationship to this hero exactly is. And a little while after he's done cleaning up the statue, he rescues a kid who almost gets crushed by falling debris. Why is the debris... What happened? What happened to make this brick just fall off? It looks like it jumped right off the rest of the building. What happened? But the purpose of the scene is to set up that he has an injury on his arm. They explain that it is because his arm was cut off, because there's no blood or anything. I mean, he's also all shadowy in this flashback in his head. I don't know. It just didn't do enough to fully explain what it was trying to explain in such a tiny panel. Later on, we do have another scene with Grimora. Well, she's like messing with him, playing with his heart. But if she was gonna have the scene where she was like playing with his heart in front of him and like making him think, oh, I'm gonna drop it and you're gonna die, or something like that, shouldn't that have been in like the first scene she was introduced in? Wouldn't that be like better than her forcibly holding him down? Berserker is at it again, trying to blow up a bakery. So in exchange for spending time with her later, he agrees to let her help him take down Berserker. So while he fights with Berserker, she saves a kid, and then goes to also save the baker who is in a truck full of explosives. So for some reason, his powers are at their best at dawn, I suppose, rather than at night. So he's able to fight much better, except, of course, he still has that arm injury, which hits him at a crucial point, causing him to fall and get exploded by a ton of bombs. At this point, he has a flashback that kind of semi-shows how he knew the hero, but not really. I don't know. It's supposed to be mysterious. After that, we see how exactly he met Grimora. We don't see how he lost this fight. That is one of the many mysteries. But we see that he lost his arm and got like a hole punched through his chest. And he begs her to save him. In exchange, he'll save her from her boredom. I think this was supposed to be in a word balloon, but it's not, and it confused me who was talking. Same thing with this one over here. This is not in a word balloon. I know that she's supposed to be talking, but it took me a while to put these together. There's a lot of panels like that, where like the word balloons and like who's talking and which one you're supposed to read first, it gets to be a little bit confusing. Saves his life and gets his heart. It's a little bit strange because she seems to also be confused by what's happening. And then there's this word balloon down here that says, whoa, what's happening to you, Zeal? Like, who's saying that? Who are you? It's not her, because she's the one who's doing the heart thing. And it's not, I assume it's not her sister. Ooh, who's saying this? Who else is present during this scene? I don't know. Anyway, so after these two flashbacks, he gets this arm imbued with his very will, and it's very strong, and overall he's able to win with how strong this arm is. Despite this, Berserker does still get away at the end. And I was expecting him to appear again in book 2, but he doesn't really. We completely shift focus, and now as a reward for her helping him, he goes shopping with her. Fulfills his obligation, as I suppose he did promise to cure her of her boredom. So I assumed that honestly we'd get more scenes like this, but really the majority of the comic is not that. And that is like my first gripe, I guess, about this first book, is I don't feel like the scenes are in order, or at least in the order that they should be to really capitalize on what makes this story interesting. We start off getting like some generic hero answering a call scene. That's not something that's going to hook a reader into reading the entire series. I think that you should have had the flashback of her saving his life much, much earlier in the story so that we can better understand what their relationship is. I think if you are going to try to explain her powers within the story better, you should have a scene where she's using more than just one power at a time. In the first book, she only uses like 2 of her powers, and she uses them very, very far apart from one another. Like she uses one power here all the way at the beginning of the story. This is like page 6 on the PDF. She uses one other power all the way at the end of the story, page 35? And we don't get nearly as proper of an explanation until this page all the way at the end, where it just explains to you Cardinal Sin. We see Wrath in book 2. I still don't know what it does. It cuts away before we get to see what it does. And if you want to leave some open so that people can get excited to see those forms in the next book, that's all fine. I'm okay with them keeping the hero and his relationship with the hero and who the villain was who almost killed him. I'm okay with them keeping that a mystery, something that you want to discover as you read more of. I think his relationship with Grimora is an important selling point of the series itself, and therefore it should be the most clear. It should be very clear as soon as you start reading the story what their relationship is. I don't like that we split apart these explanations into like multiple scenes where they give you a little bit of information at a time as to what their relationship is together, what the deal is with why he can't arrest her, and also if his job is to entertain her. We don't really see any of that until all the way at the end of the story. We're being introduced to her for the first time. He's dismissing her. He doesn't want anything to do with her. He doesn't act like he has any obligation to spend time with her. But he does, doesn't he? Isn't that part of the deal? Isn't that why she saved his life? Because he has to spend time with her? If I were gonna go all in with this idea, then I would have rewrote this scene to be like, okay, she shows up, he's like, don't bother me right now, I'm trying to do hero work. And then she asks something ridiculous of him, right? Something like, I want to see you juggle. Juggle, bitch. And he's like, that's stupid. Why would I stop everything I'm doing just to juggle? And then she like pulls out his heart and like threatens to squash it or something. At the very least, that would give a reason for why she interrupts him in the scene, because there's no reason. Now, another key character trait about Zeal is that he's kind of like a Chinibyo. He very much acts like stereotypical caricature of a superhero who's also kind of edgy. And that is not an insult to the writer, that is intentional in his character, that he's supposed to be like that. They don't do that much with it in the first book. They actually have a decent scene where he's talking with other heroes in book 2, who immediately recognize that he's a little bit weird and hard to get along with. And you're able to establish this in a very quick scene between him just interacting with the heroes. I think it's much more interesting than maybe what we get in the first book. Now, the second book mostly focuses on them going to this party for other heroes, and it's just kind of a socializing event, but Grimora wants to go, so he takes her. And I was expecting this to be a lead-in for shenanigans and other funny things, but not much funny happens, if we're being completely honest here. They don't get into really any shenanigans at the party. I'm really surprised, honestly, because it seems like there was a lot of opportunity to have Grimora doing like stupid shit and him having to cover for her. But no. I think the second book more so focuses on the idea of our main character Zeal learning how to work with other people and trying to make more friends. Not that he really tried that hard. I mean, this guy just kind of was magnetized to him, actually. And then, of course, there are some villains who, like, come after the heroes, after the party and whatnot. But, you know, read book 2 to find out more about that, I suppose. It is currently funding on Kickstarter, so I'm not really sure how much I'm supposed to exactly reveal about it. I see, like, what trope they're going for is kind of like the girl who teases the guy type of trope, but then applied to a superhero-like context. And I think that there is some character to this, and there is a lot of potential behind this idea. All that being said, what I am looking for from this comic, I'm not sure it completely delivered on. The fight scenes are fun. I can say that much. I actually do really like the artist behind this. They're a little bit, you know, inconsistent, especially with full body proportions. Sometimes people look about right, but then sometimes people look like midgets. But overall, I actually do really like the artist. I think that they're very expressive. I think that they do really well with a lot of these fight scenes. I think the pacing overall is a little bit off. It's a little bit slow, and this is actually, believe it or not, a very text-heavy comic series so far. A lot of the text doesn't feel necessary. We get a lot of these heroes and villains giving speeches, and the speeches go on for a while. You can't just have a character make their point in one sentence. It has to be like a paragraph or 2 paragraphs sometimes. And I think that's something that the writer needs to work on condensing. Because with all of this space that you're taking up in the comic to have these long, ongoing speeches, I'm not getting context for the story. I'm confused on a lot of different parts of the story. And these are things that should take priority when it comes to explaining things, not philosophy. I don't give a shit about a hero or a villain's philosophy right now. Like, guys, do you really care about what Berserker's philosophy is? This game of heroes and villains is no different than any other conflict life throws our way. Mundane runs around a circle that spews nothing but noise. It's pointless to invest so deeply in such a tar pit, but I discovered you can take it for a joyride if you know how to sink a few hours into it. Like, motherfucker, you say bye when you leave the scene. Why are you acting like you're deep? Get out of here. Looking at the credits, I did not see an editor, but I think that this story could highly benefit from an editor. I think there's a lot of random bubbles that don't really sound right. The sentences just sound like kind of confusing and strange. And I'm not even sure if all of the attention for what is happening per book is going to the right spots. So overall thoughts on Relentlessly Bullied Hero, I like it, but it does need work. And I do hope things are better fleshed out in the future. So if you are interested in this comic series, please do check out their Kickstarter currently going right now. At this time of recording, they have 41 backers. You can get your copy today. There's 3 different covers they got going on. This is a nice art piece. I forgot to mention it before, but this is a nice art piece. This is a complicated angle to do. You did a good job on this one. So yeah, links in the description below. Thank you everyone for joining me for another comic review. If you're also an indie creator and wanted to see me review your comic on the channel, email me for details. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Program restart. Shutting down all systems.